Hi, welcome to Deep Six, the Deep State. Is it possible that Britain was behind the entire story and fable of Russian collusion with Donald Trump? Is it possible that they began the entire thing? In our book, Rogue Spooks, The Intelligence War Against Donald Trump, we have a big chapter, we wrote it a year ago, big chapter called What Were the Brits Up To?, which lays out that hypothesis, that there was a country that tried to screw with our elections, and it wasn't the Russians, it was the British. And not against Donald Trump, not against Hillary Clinton, but for her. Recently, this theory has become more and more likely because the Nunes Committee, the House Intelligence Committee, demanded that the Department of Justice provide them with all of the documents that were related to their going in on the FISA request to surveil and wiretap various members of the Trump staff, and really including Trump himself. And the Justice Department replied, oh, we can't do that because it would endanger intelligence sources here and international sources, which raises the question of what international sources. Now, we're going to find out soon because Nunes and Kurt Gowdy, the chairman of the Oversight Committee, said that they would go after the Justice Department for contempt of Congress, criminal contempt, if they did not turn over these documents to them. They turned them over, but in heavily redacted form. And they said, don't redact from us, we're on the Intelligence Committee. Tell us the truth. And Justice is meeting with them and will probably have to cough it up. But Kimberly Strassel of the Wall Street Journal and Fox News has written a number of pieces that suggest that the source may be an international source, to wit, a British source. And the evidence points in that direction. The alternative to the dossier, as to the story, what tipped the FBI and the Justice Department off to the possibility of this Russian collusion, is that they didn't get it from the dossier. They got it from George Papadopoulos, a 29-year-old guy who was kind of a stringer in the Trump campaign, a volunteer, had never met Trump, not in the inner circle, but apparently he ran into somehow the former foreign minister of Australia in a London pub and was frothing at the mouth and boasting about how he knew all about this collusion going on between Trump and the Kremlin, and he was a major player in the whole deal. And that was reported back to the CIA, back to, I think, MI6, the British CIA, and they say it led to this whole investigation. Well, how did they meet? You know, the Australian foreign minister doesn't routinely hang around with barflies in Britain. And it is very possible that it was a British agent, an MI6 agent, who arranged that encounter. MI6 is reported to have laid several intelligence traps, they call it, to try to get Trump campaign people to spill the beans, if there are any, about collusion with the Russians. And this may well have been one of those intelligence traps. In any case, the rambling, drunken words of a 29-year-old staffer are hardly the basis for turning a whole administration over, leading to impeachment, a special prosecutor, and all the garbage we've been dragged through over the last year in the Mueller investigation. But it's useful to revisit the issue of what were the Brits up to in this. As we say in Rogue Spooks, please get a copy if you haven't. It's the guide to all that's going on. We predicted everything that's happened, and we predict stuff that is going to happen. First of all, the whole issue of Russian involvement was first raised by MI6 in a series of messages to the FBI in September of 2015 with red flags about Russian hacking of the DNC computers. And during the whole campaign, MI6 and GCHQ, the British equivalent of the NSA, routinely passed warnings to the FBI. And Christopher Steele, who wrote the dossier, was, of course, an MI6 agent, and his sources may well have been people in MI6. The Russians say there's no such thing as a former MI6 agent. Once you're in, and you stay there. It was Steele who went to the FBI, the British Steele, went to the FBI in July of 16, right before the hack was discovered, to warn the FBI about Russian collusion. So he initially brought this case to Comey and told him about it. And it was the former UK ambassador to Russia, Sir Andrew Wood, who was associated with Steele in business, who loudly trumpeted how wonderful his work was, and who arranged for McCain to get a copy of the dossier to give it to Comey, which he then did. That resulted in its getting out. It was also to London that an associate of McCain's traveled to get the dossier in a hush-hush meeting at Heathrow Airport. There are numerous unpublished reports that unverified reports that Steele had shared his information with MI6 and shared the dossier with them early. In any event, Robert Hannigan, who was the head of GCHQ, the British NSA, a very popular guy, resigned a few hours after Trump became president. And nobody knew why, nobody knows why. He said it was his family, but there's no evidence of illness. And it may well have been, people believe, that he was compromised in his dealings with the Trump administration by his attempts to create the theory of a Russian collusion. And when Steele was outed and the dossier was outed, MI6 helpfully provided Steele with what's called a D notice, which is a government directive requesting that all media refrain from reporting anything at all about Steele for 9 hours while he could make his way out of the country. Why would they do that for a former agent who is no longer in their employ? All roads in this thing lead back to London, and it's worth focusing on the British connection. Read about it in Rogue Spooks, and I think you'll find it very, very interesting. I think you'll find that there may well have been a connection between the British and this whole scandal that took off from there. Now, this video, as they all are, is sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. And since January 1st, the market has proven a very unreliable place to invest your money, but gold has proven to be very reliable. And many, many experts are predicting that the price of gold will go up from the current level of about $1,350 an ounce to $1,600 within the next year or thereabouts, or 6 months. So think about getting on the escalator. You can call the Patriot Gold Group at the number on the screen, or go to patriotgoldgroup.com. Thanks a lot for watching. Hi, welcome to Deep Six, the Deep State. The exact same oligarch that donated money to Michael Cohen's corporation, $500,000, that Mueller is busily investigating, also gave $50,000 to $100,000 to the Clinton Foundation and arranged for another $25,000 to be given to them. And the guy who made the donations, the oligarch named Victor Vekselberg, also met with Bill Clinton during his trip to Moscow in 2010 at Clinton's request. Vekselberg had been charged by Putin and Medvedev with developing the Russian equivalent of the Silicon Valley, and he was obviously peddling influence in the United States. But it is rather odd that Mueller totally ignores the payoffs to the Clintons, but focuses extensively on money that was paid to Michael Cohen. Now, it's an unfortunate reality that foreign countries, particularly rich people in those countries and rich governments, work hard on influence peddling in the U.S. when a new president is up for election. And typically they give to both sides. And this is an example where Russia gave to both sides, to Cohen for Trump and to Hillary and to the Clinton Foundation. And obviously they were playing both ends. And but Mueller doesn't work like that. He's just focusing on the one end that went to Cohen, but ignoring the money that went to Hillary. Now, there's a big difference between those. The $500,000 that he gave Cohen to invest for him in the U.S. we may or may not have gone into anything important. We don't know yet. But the money that was paid to Bill Clinton for giving his speech in Moscow on the same trip where he met Beckelsberg was obviously important and obviously led to the vote on the Foreign Investment Committee on which Hillary sat to approve the sale of 20% of our uranium to Russia. So Mueller is particularly one-sided in this investigation, and he ought to be looking at both sides of this ledger. Thanks for watching. Hi, my friends. Welcome to Deep Six, the Deep State. You know, the question of whether Hillary will be indicted over the Clinton Foundation and the email scandal is looming. But let's recount the 3 other times that Hillary, narrowly, by the skin of her teeth, escaped indictment. The most recent, of course, was over the summer of '16, when Comey, having reviewed her emails, announced that she was extremely careless, but not grossly negligent, and wrongly said that the standard for whether or not you indict somebody under the Espionage Act was did they intend to harm the United States? In fact, the statute says nothing about that. It simply says, did you intentionally mishandle classified material and know that it was wrong? Or were you grossly negligent in your handling of classified material? And of course, Hillary was. In fact, the FBI investigators originally wrote up that she was grossly negligent, and then Comey changed it to extremely careless. And based on that semantic distinction, she escaped indictment. The first time she came near indictment was in 1993, right after Bill took office. There was a travel office in the White House which arranged all the logistics for presidential travel. The president, his staff, the press, the Secret Service, all of that stuff. They made the plane and the hotel reservations and coordinated all of it. And the commissions for those reservations flowed into the Treasury. Clinton wanted to change that and have the commissions flow to a private agency that had filmed his ads during the campaign. It was kind of a payoff. And he wanted the travel office staff fired. The person behind this all was Hillary. And in fact, David Watkins, the Deputy Secretary of Administration, said that there would be, quote, hell to pay, unquote, with Hillary if the firings didn't go on and the travel office staff was not dismissed. Ultimately, they made up phony charges of misfailure to account and dishonesty by the staff and used that to fire them. They were subsequently put back in office, reinstated, and the information was known to be phony. Anyway, the U.S. attorney special prosecutor asked Hillary about that, and she said she had nothing to do with the firings. And technically, of course, that was wrong. She had been the one who'd been urging it. But she escaped indictment because she wasn't in the chain of command. It didn't go from president to first lady to travel office. She had nothing to do with the chain of command. She was just out here as the first lady. So based on that, her instruction to fire them was not seen as an instruction, but as advice. The third escape from an indictment was even more narrow. It was in the Whitewater scandal. Jim McDougal, who was in charge of Madison Guaranty Savings and Loan Association, got in trouble for making crazy mortgage loans, most of which benefited him as the developer. So the feds said you may no longer make loans, in effect, to yourself on real estate projects in which you were involved. Well, he hired Hillary as his lawyer, and she figured out a plan to put up Webb Hubbell, her law partner's father-in-law, as the straw man purchaser, pretending he was the one buying the land. And then at the very end, he'd switch it back to McDougal. And that was illegal. It was bank fraud. And when the special and those were the billing records of the amount of time she spent on that were missing for 2 years. She was hiding them because it showed she worked very hard on arranging this fraudulent deal. The special prosecutor, Kenneth Starr, asked her about it, and she said she did no work on the project, but she called the project Castle Grande, which was one of its 2 names. The other name was AIDC, Arkansas Industrial Development Commission. And Hillary claimed that she knew the project as AIDC, not as Castle Grande. And because Starr did not mention both in his question, she escaped indictment for perjury. Narrow escapes. You'd think you'd learn, but not Hillary. Then she goes right back into this pay-for-play scandal, where I think they have her dead to rights. This is sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. You know, since the first of the year, the stock market is down 8% from 25,000 to 23,000. And gold is up 4%. So if you put $100,000 into the market on January 1st, you'd have 92,000 now. Actually 90,000 because there's been 2% inflation. Whereas in gold, you'd have 104,000. So 104 versus 90, which is better for you. Call the Patriot Gold Group at the number on the screen, or email them or go to their website at patriotgoldgroup.com. Thanks for watching. Hi, my friends. Welcome to Deep Six, the Deep State. New digs here. We moved our studio. I want to chat with you a little bit today about Hillary's emails, the stuff she secreted away on her secret server. Now, as you'll recall, the issue came before the Justice Department as to whether or not she should be indicted. And in July of 2016, 4 months before the election, James Comey, the director of the FBI, announced that there was no basis for indicting her. He said no prosecutor would, because it was clear that while she had violated the letter of how you should handle emails by keeping them on a private server, there was no requisite intent to harm the United States. Now, that standard, requisite in the intent to harm the United States, is not what the Espionage Act says, and that's what he was proceeding under. Let me read you what it says. A person is guilty if they willfully cause the unauthorized transmission of classified information, meaning if she understands the wrongfulness of the action and intentionally performs it anyway, or 2, if through gross negligence she permits the information to be removed from its proper place or to be otherwise mishandled. Section 793 D, E, and F of Title 18 of the U.S. Code. Now, Hillary absolutely knew that it was wrong to just distribute classified information over the open internet, and she did it anyway. And the staff of the FBI investigating her originally found that she had committed gross negligence. They later changed the wording to be extreme carelessness, so it wouldn't fall within the meaning of that statute. But obviously they originally said it was extreme carelessness. And the way they got to this new standard, not the standard in the law, but the one Comey used, which was intent to harm the United States, that the statute does not say, is that Obama said it. In April of 16, Obama said that he didn't think Hillary should be prosecuted. He didn't think someone who was the potential nominee of a political party for president should be indicted, particularly without any intent to harm the United States. And Comey adopted that standard and put it in his press release and in his statement. But where did he get that? From a political statement. The statute itself does not indicate intent to harm the United States. It just says willfully cause the transmission of unauthorized classified information and intentionally doing so. And if there's gross negligence involved, all of which clearly describes Hillary. Now, this information was brought to light by Andrew McCarthy of the National Review, who I follow closely. And Andrew is a former assistant U.S. attorney. And I think this revelation is very important, and it certainly indicates that Hillary Clinton should have been indicted. And by the way, since there's no double jeopardy, since there's been no prosecution, she should still be indicted. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching.